I'm Steggles. What I'm going to be showing you today is the med kits or first aid kits that I use on pack hikes. I actually use different kits on day hikes, something shorter. So you'll see that I have two different kits here, one smaller one slightly larger. Now that one I use for overnight hikes or basic hikes. I would consider it ultralight, but by Australian standards it probably would be. By American standards maybe not. An ultralight med kit for an American would probably be a handful of band-aids and some gaffer tape. The other larger med kit that I use, that's for a multi-day hike, perhaps 3 to 4 days, or maybe I would use it on an overnight hike, perhaps if I thought there was a little bit more risk. The other situation where I'll use the larger one is if I'm leading the group and I think it's just a good idea to have something a bit more comprehensive to cover more possibilities. So what I'll do next is open up each one and show you what's inside. So what I've got here is the smaller of the two medkits. We'll go through this in a moment. But before we do that, what I'll say is I've got two ideas or philosophies, you could say, about first aid kits. One of those is that it should really have things in it which are going to be likely to be used, which are solve, say, a discomfort or inconvenience. That'll become a bit more clearer when I start showing you what's inside there. The other idea I have is you'll start to notice as I pull things out of this one and the larger kit, I kind of have a east meets west philosophy in terms of medications and I guess remedies. So I do have a few Chinese remedies and tinctures and balms and stuff like that. Natural medications, remedies. It's just a case of they work. I've found them to be quite handy. So let's start going through this. Now, one thing which will be apparent with these smaller kits is they can only fit so much in them, and one of the things which can be a pain is how tightly packed they are. That can be a hassle getting things in and out. So, as you would expect, they're obligatory band-aids. There'll be a few of those, but the kit's not really full of band-aids. I think you want bigger band-aids on account of if you do get a scrape or scratch in the bush, you'll manage. It's not going to be a big deal. I tend to err on the side of having larger band-aids on the assumption that if you did get a big cut, a gash, you want something that's going to cover that. So I don't have as many small band-aids because it's just scrapes and scratches, you get them and you'll get through it. Whereas if you do take a big scratch or scrape, that's something you do want to cover quite well. The other thing I'll say about the band-aids I use, I tend to use the material ones rather than plastic. These I just find are more durable. If you do have a cut and you're in the bush for a day or two, you want it to be protected and well covered. You don't want the band-aid coming off. If you're at home, the band-aid's not staying on, no problem, just take it off and put on another one. The one thing about these material ones is, they do get wet, but they do dry as well. So that's just one of the smaller band-aids, and I lean towards the better quality ones, which I'll show you more of that in a moment. So another thing I have in my small kit is something called a wound seal. I don't believe these are readily available in Australia. I actually had this sent from the US. It's a powder which promotes blood to clot. So for something a bit more serious, a larger cut which is bleeding, you would sprinkle this powder on it and it's meant to help the clotting process. I've never had any experiences using these, but yeah, there should be something equivalent that you can get from chemists from Australia. Now, I think no med kit should be without your hydration salts. That's just to help in situations where someone's become dehydrated. It can happen. I have walked past a group in the past where a gentleman had dehydrated. It's not necessarily something which only happens in heat. Someone might be unaccustomed to long hours of hauling a pack, might not be prepared or might not have the fitness level. So that is a must. It's just turning water into Gatorade, helps you replace salt. One of the key sort of signifiers that you are low on hydration salts or electrolytes is you'll start to develop a headache. So yeah, I think that is a must for any med kit that you're taking out in the bush. Another band-aid, slightly larger. Again, you'll start to see a pattern here where I'm preferencing larger band-aids rather than the tiny little ones. And again, this is a material band-aid and a fairly good brand, Elastoplas. So this is the first of the sort of Chinese remedies that I mentioned. This one's called Salapus. It's a heat patch, you could say. The most apt simile I would probably say, if you've never seen these before, it's similar to deep heat or Denko rub, but it's not as messy. That just goes on the skin and continues to work for a few hours. A situation where you might use that is sore back or sore shoulders. I have used these in the past where I've been hiking for during the day and ended up with sore shoulders from straps, and that'll just go on in the evening. It helps it heal up by the next day. So this is a good example of what I was talking about in terms of large patches, in terms of band-aids. Now that's quite a large patch, and that's under the assumption that you've got a fairly significant cut on your leg, arm, whatever it may be, a scrape. That is waterproof, and that's a fairly good quality one. I don't think it's not an area you want to skimp on and regret if you're in the bush and you've hurt yourself. And you've not gotten good quality bandages, you'll not be happy about that. So I've got some tape here. You've got your standard medical tape, which is not that adhesive. There's certain times you use that, and a thicker tape there that can be used for blisters, but it can be a bit tough to get off. I'd put that on skin prior to a blister. If I knew a particular area was prone to blisters, I'd use that one because that does stay on. You wouldn't put that on over an existing blister. It'll just probably cause more trouble. Now this one's, I guess this does speak to my point about carrying remedies which are to help you out in inconveniences or discomfort where it is likely to happen. The likelihood of getting a large scrape it's probably not going to happen. Not that I've seen often. So what I've got here is a throat lozenge, Strepsil, the numbing variety. So if you develop a sore throat at night, you'd suck on that. One's probably not enough, but that's all that can fit in this kit. And then also have a Reni, just an indigestion tablet. Now, is it a big deal if you didn't have these and you developed a sore throat or stomach ache from your food? Not really, but it's just a matter of comfort. And I think, it does happen. You do develop a sore throat. I know I have. It's a very basic pain relief. These are just two of the Nurophens, ibuprofen, anything really. I tend to prefer the fast-acting ones because, if you've got something, toothache or headache or whatever, or you've banged something, you don't want to really be waiting around for the active ingredient to kick in. You want it working faster rather than later. So I've got your standard sterile pad here, as you would expect to find. Those are handy, and they work in conjunction with medical tape. You could be in a situation where one of the larger band-aids doesn't really fit in the right spot between a finger, say for there, and so these are handy to have, and they are quite versatile. Now what I've got here is probably one of the key ingredients I have to my kits, which is very versatile. It's a Chinese tincture called Zhengu Sui. I'll show you what the bottle itself looks like. That's the bottle that you would get from a Chinese grocery. These I think are fantastic. I've been using it for years. They're particularly effective for any muscle strains or borderline injuries. It acts very quickly and sinks into the skin, and it's not messy. It does smell a bit. This is never to be used on cut or broken skin. It's not designed for that. So yeah, I can't recommend this too highly. I have that in all my kits and even have it on in a little pouch on my keychain. So that's definitely worth researching, but it might be a bit unusual to people unaccustomed. It's available in all Asian grocery stores. It's around. It's nothing unusual for someone who's from China. It's like, yeah, of course, why? Yeah, we use it all the time, sprains and such like that. And it's also great for sports. So yeah, if you do have strained ankles or knees, this just accelerates the healing process. Nothing magical about it. All it does is draw more blood flow to an area. If there's more blood flow, you're bringing repair materials to that particular area. So what I have here is some aqua tabs. These are for water treatment. I carry 4 tabs. Each tab can treat 1 litre of water. I believe it takes about 20 minutes to treat it. Now, I try not to use chemical treatments for water, mainly because it does alter the taste. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't hurt you. So this is more just for emergencies if you were in a situation where you had to get some mucky water and there was no choice. It was either that or go thirsty. You'd use these, and that sorts out any nasties, bacteria and such in the water, and it's fine to drink. So I do keep those in my med kit, just so I know where they are. It's probably very rare to use them, because when I hike, I usually take some other form of water filtration. Just your obligatory alcohol wipe, just to disinfect an area, a cup. And now this one's called Diphene antihistamine. I never really need to use this myself. I don't swell or anything like that from whatever situation, but I sort of take it just in case someone else might need it, and it's quite small. Now what you have here is just a plain bag of salt, really. Now that you can probably figure out where you'd use that. That is for environments where you are around leeches. Now I have been walking in rainforests before and been with other people, and we have gotten leeches on ourselves. What I found with leeches, if you see them just as they land on your skin or hook on, if you take them off quickly, they'll come off with no issue. However, if they've been there for a few minutes, they've actually latched on and inserted their teeth into your skin. The temptation is to pull them off, yank them off, and they will come off. However, they will leave their teeth behind in your skin, and within a few days you'll get an infection, as you would expect. It's a foreign body, their teeth break off, and or their mouth parts stay in the skin. So it's easier said than done to sort of resist the temptation to go, well, there's a leech, pull it off. If you to sort of go, I'm going to go into my med kit and get the salt to get it off. Probably more logical is if I'm going into an area and go, you know what, I think there's leeches around here. If I do see some, I'll take just the bag out and have it in my pocket. And if I do get a leech on me, just sprinkle some on. Most people I hike with don't have much of a problem with it, because these days most people hike with long pants, even in hotter climates. I tend to hike with shorts, so I do have a little area exposed on my knees. Leeches always find their ways in. And also, if you're wearing short sleeves, it is possible. So I think that's handy to have. Now this is a couple of anti-diarrhea tablets. Do you really need anti-diarrhea tablets for an overnight or weekend hike? It's unlikely, but I just carry that just in case. It won't cover a lot of time, but it might help if in a situation. I've never had to use them. So here's another one of the, I guess, natural remedies which I use. It's a gel called Goodbye Sting. Now I'll show you what it looks like. It's roughly the consistency and color of, say, Vicks. It actually smells quite nice. It's, I believe, one of the main ingredients in this is manuka oil. Now the reason why I carry this is it's very, very effective against any insect bites and any kind of itching. So you sometimes do brush past plants, which can cause some itching. That takes care of it straight away. It also is fantastic for mosquito bites. You just dab a little bit on, and the mosquito bite, the itchiness goes away straight away. And having been in New Zealand and suffered from sandfly bites, that's great for that. So it just sort of helps your welts or bites go away quicker. It also is a very mild antiseptic. I wouldn't rely on it for anything big, but just little scrapes and cuts. And because it's a kind of wax, it does stay on. So I find this to be quite good. I've only been using it for about 1.5 years, so still testing it out and seeing what it can do, but very pleased with it so far. Now I have another Sting gel here. You might ask, why do I have 2 sting relief remedies? It's because not all sting relief remedies work on everything. I have found before, for example, I've been bitten by a wasp, which is quite painful, and found that Stingos was very effective. So if you can't get your hands on something like this, the sort of gel, I would highly recommend Stingos. That's very effective. I just don't have any in this kit. I use like a little sash. So just having a secondary sting relief remedy, just in case the first one's not effective. Now what I've got here, these are called moleskins. I won't bother taking them out. They look very similar to these. These are just for putting in areas where you're developing blisters. I personally don't suffer from blisters very often. I have seen people that do get them, and it can be quite debilitating. The key is, if you know you get blisters, sort of take care of it beforehand, before it gets serious, and then when the skin starts to rub, it becomes a problem. So that's everything there. It sort of looks like a bit of a show bag. It's a basic kit. It doesn't have a lot, and it's not very heavy on the band-aid side of things, but it's what I would take for a short hike, weekend hike. That's all that's in it. This is the med kit I take with me for longer hikes, say 3-4 days, maybe longer. I also take it with me whenever I'm leading the group. That's just to be sure, because I'm not aware of what other people have brought, band-aids or whatever. It just err on the side of caution with that. Now this has the same ideas as the smaller kit, but I guess ramping things up and being a bit more thorough. The idea is being prepared for more serious injuries, and also I do tend to have a lot more tinctures and sort of natural remedies, they seem to give a lot of flexibility and be quite useful. So let's dive in, and I'll show you what I've got in here. Now for starters, this will be tricky whether you could do this for yourself or not, but that's antibiotics. Now that's prescribed under my name. It's just I can't extol the virtues of antibiotics. Now that's under the assumption that there is a serious injury and you're days away, or even some kind of infection. Not everyone's going to be able to have that. That's a broad spectrum antibiotic. I know I'm okay with that. I probably wouldn't be giving that to anyone else. That would be strictly for me. It's very large, but it's antibiotics. I would hope not to have to use that, but it is possible. You know, there's been times where I've been out on multi-day hikes and developed a toothache or something like that and had needed antibiotics. So that's a big one. I should say, if you are wanting antibiotics in your med kit, you can go to your GP and say, can I have a broad spectrum antibiotic I'm doing a longer trip just for safety. That people often do that when they're going overseas, so I do take this overseas as well. Now I've got stingos there, probably doesn't need much explanation. That's just great in terms of itchiness or any insect bites, stuff like that. You might notice that I'm using these little tiny bottles. These are actually breath mints. They're from the chemist. Most chemists have them. They're only a couple of bucks. I just empty them, clean them, and put my own whatever gels or such I want in them. They're very small. I think they're 3 mils. And there you can see. You can get a good controlled amount, and they're compact and exactly how much you need. Now I also use these little bottles. I use bottles for, I guess, oils, especially some of the, I guess, essential oils will evaporate, and these actually have evaporated a little bit. I'm not sure if there's a way to stop that. These are very small. They're something like 2 mil or 3 mil. What you're looking at there is clove oil. That's very effective for toothaches. I'm not sure if there's any other uses for that, but that's what I have that in there for. This is another natural remedy. It's called Panaway. It's pretty obscure. I don't think anyone's going to be getting their hands on that, but it's from a company called Young Living. They have very high quality oils. That has some interesting properties. I probably won't go into too much detail. It's a little bit, beyond the scope of this video. But for example, it's good for, I guess, different kinds of aches and pains. A good one is it can help with headaches if it's rubbed around the forehead or temple. But yeah, there's more that this can do, but I won't go into it. You can research that. So it's called Panaway. Another one of the smaller bottles. This is Manuka oil. That's not anything too weird or unusual. People do use this. Manuka oil is fantastic for any itchiness or even mild infections. I guess it's a bit of a double up of the stingos, but my preference is, I'll try and use a natural remedy. Some Manuka oils do smell, and there's not much you can do about that. Now I'm getting into, I guess, some of the meat of the kit. So again, I've got Salipans, same thing I use in the smaller kit. I believe I've got 2 patches there, so I like to take 2, and that has the properties where it's great for using on sore muscles, and it's not messy. And one advantage you get over that, say, compared to Denko Rub or Deep Heat, is that stays in place with no mess and continues to be active for a few hours. I think it even goes 4 or 5 hours. That's available from any Chinese grocery store. It's a very common remedy for them. It's something they grow up with. I've been using it for years. It's quite effective. Now in this bag, I have, I guess, gathered together. I don't think this is the Band-Aid bag. This is, I guess, the miscellaneous tablets bag. It just helps with the organisation, and also that's not a waterproof bag in itself. This helps in case it does get wet, which is very rare. So same as with my smaller kit, I have hydration salts. That just helps if someone's dehydrated, heat stroke, that sort of thing. Important to have the electrolytes. I generally do drink some Gatorade via powder on hikes, but I keep that there as well in case someone does get dehydrated. I have some cold and flu tablets, only a small amount for a few days. Haven't used them in the past, but it's just something I have in the kit where if you are out and about a few days into the wilderness and you do start to develop a cold, don't forget, you are going to be hiking the next day. It's more stress on your body. These, I believe, only really will mask symptoms. They don't cure a cold or anything like that. I have a number of anti-diarrhea tablets. That does become significant as you're further into the wilderness. You can get dehydrated, and these kind of work together. If you do get sick in that way, and you are taking Imodium or something like similar, you do require replenishments of electrolytes. So there's only a small amount there. That's, I think, only a couple of days worth. So I have a mild, low-level painkiller there. So that's just your ibuprofen in terms of Nurofen. There's 3 tablets there. Most of the time that I've used that is perhaps when if I've had a toothache or something similar to that. I generally don't take these for headaches. I don't get headaches often, but again, that's pretty important to have in any kit, some form of mild painkiller. Now I also have some Reni. This is just for stomach upsets and indigestion. There's just a couple of tablets there. That's more a case of just convenience and comfort. Do you really need those? Not really, but I do like to take them just in case. Now here's another one. This is also a painkiller, but this is Mercendol. That's a higher level of painkiller above that. I wouldn't be taking that unless it was something fairly serious, an ankle sprain or something painful. Mercendol's funny. It affects people different ways. Some people it has quite a strong effect, and others doesn't do that much. But this wouldn't be the first port of call in terms of if there was an injury which was quite painful. It'd be just the ibuprofen, and if I had something serious, again, I've never had anything serious enough to warrant Mercendol. That this is something which dentists even give people after having their wisdom teeth out. That's the bag that I just store all those miscellaneous tablets in. Bag of salt, just for use of getting leeches off. A small bandage. Now that is tiny, but it can be used for, I guess, a compression bandage for a sprained ankle. It's only going to be limited. I guess it can also be used for a wound dressing, just to soak up blood. So that's actually wound around a small piece of plastic, and I do have the sprain elastic back in there as well, and that's kept all in position in the plastic bag. So you'll notice that I do have many of these tablets in tiny little zip bags. That's just to keep them, I guess, fresh, clean, especially things like bandages, you want them clean. Give some protection against water as well. Now, this is just a burn gel. I suspect this is mostly aloe vera. When would you get burned out hiking? Can happen campfires or your stove. I've not seen it. I probably only burnt fingers and stuff. This is another anti-itching agent called Stop Itch. Probably not that necessary, because now we're going to about, I think, 3 different anti-itching things. I think I've just found over the years insect bites just plague me. I'm not a big user of things like, I guess, what's it called, Bushmans. So, the more industrial strength insect repellents, I tend not to use those, but then the price I pay is I do get bites, and then I treat them. A few more of these smaller bottles. Aloe vera, I think that's a very good idea to take. That is excellent for sunburn, again, possible. It also is good for burns and itching, and aloe vera's got a lot of uses. It's well known. There's nothing really fancy about it. I would suggest having that. It does get used quite often, actually, by me. Sometimes I miss areas on my shoulders or something like that, and I get some mild sunburn. So it's very helpful for that. So now the next bag I've got here, you could say it's the pouch which has all the band-aids in it. I'll open this up and show you. So like I said before, I've got this sort of pouch system where I can locate where, it's almost like themes of where things are. So, this is the pouch with the band-aids. Now I've got quite a large band-aid there, and that's waterproof. Another large band-aid, that's under the assumption that, it's a fairly big gash cut, and to help with that and keep it covered for days. These are laceration bandages. They're quite strong, so that again it's effectively like temporary stitching until you can get proper stitching done. I carry a few aqua tabs in my med kit as well. There's 6 there. That's enough to treat 6 litres. I think it's a good place to keep it in the event that you did need to treat water. I know where it is, but that's won't do a lot. I generally have another mechanism as well that I take for water filtration. I've got a antiseptic bandage there, quite a chunky one. This is an antihistamine, again for swelling or some kind of allergic reaction. Now I believe this is meant for ticks, but it's just a tiny tweezers. This might not seem that sensible or relevant, but it is possible to fall and get gravel in your skin from a cut, so, and also insects and taking out splinters. I've not had to use it, but in my mind it has got potential to be quite helpful, especially with you could fall and scrape yourself and get bits of stick or whatever it may be inside a wound, and that's one way to help get them out, or splinters or insect bites or stingers. Now this one's called Wound Seal. I have that in the small med kit as well, and that's just a powder which helps coagulation of blood. So for a more serious wound that's bleeding, you would pour that on it and it helps I guess blood clot. There's some moleskin there, just a small piece that'd be cut up to be used for I guess protection against blisters. I don't get blisters myself, so I don't bring much of that. And then I have some tapes. So I've got one tape which is just your medical tape that would be potentially used in conjunction with some other bandage, and then a stronger tape there. There's another moleskin there, and also elastoplast fabric tape, and again that can be used for various things like keeping band-aids in place that might be in a tricky position. So that's about it for my larger kit. The only thing which I'm not putting in here at the moment, and I'll probably go and put there later, is just a small wound pad. They're good to have just to help with wiping up a wound or using in conjunction with taping. That's about it for everything that I keep in this small bag. And the particular bag I use, one thing I'll say about carrying your stuff, I do like to have specific bags which point it out and make it clear this is a med kit. I've seen people who just have things in a Ziploc bag. Nothing wrong with that, that's fine. I just, as a personal tasting, like to know that is my med kit, and I can, very bright and everything's in one place and I can get to it quite fast. Now also I weighed this before. This actually weighs 117 grams, so still very light compared to the other small one which is 48 grams, so a bit over double the weight of it. This is a bit of an appendix to what I was just showing before with the larger med kit that I use. At the end of showing what I had inside this, I realized something was missed, and that's because I actually had been missing some things from here. So what had happened was I had been on a longer trip earlier in the year and used some of the items out of this, especially some larger band-aids for some blisters that I developed. This illustrates an interesting point with medkits. You use stuff and sometimes you can actually forget to put it back in there, and that can be an issue. Most likely if I was doing a bigger trip, I would probably quickly go through this and may notice, but I might not have. So there were a few items which I do commonly keep in here which weren't included, and this would increase the weight of this. It actually should be close to 160 grams. One of the main things is a large bottle of Zengu Sui. Now I described this when I was talking about the smaller med kit. Again, this is just fantastic for any strains, and if you are pushing it and muscles. And I did use a lot of this on my trip in New Zealand, sort of February, and also Betadine, an antiseptic. That's pretty much a must for small scrapes. So I don't want to depend on alcoholic wipes. It's just you're using them, they'll be inconvenient. Whereas that can be put in the pocket, and it's convenient to use. And also Goodbye Ouch, again for insect bites. And I'd been missing my gauze. Again, that's good for wound cleaning and for inconvenient spots. And larger band-aids. So I did have at least 2 other ones in this larger kit, but I had used them. I'll actually show the band-aid brand that I use. So this is Elastoplast. I prefer to get the ones with the silver ingredient in it, which I guess is just silver dust. These, they're not magical, but they do shave off a little bit of time, and they reduce the possibility of a cut getting infected. Silver and bacteria just don't mix very well. So yeah, that's just a little bit of an adjunct to the previous stuff I was showing that I'd missed out on.